Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we read, Funnel Factor 12, The Plane That Never Was, Magma Carp, Internet Savvy Predator, which was basically Nightline if it was alive. Is it Nightline or is it Dateline? The one where they catch the predators with cookies, except there weren't cookies, there was just dissolving. And blood? This time we're going to be going through Water Orb, the Body Farm, the Ghost Sickness, Desert Shipwreck, Reality Bending Cat, River Cat, Curious Poltergeist, Cortex Rat, Carnivorous Blanket, and an Eastern History. The reason we're going through 10 of these is because it takes more than 5 to cover all the animals, and I want to break into the 800s before the week is out. And I figure if I break into the 800s now in this episode, then tomorrow I might do an SCP Sidestep video. We'll see. I have no idea. Maybe there won't even be an SCP video tomorrow. My main goal was to make it out of the 700s during this SCP Blitz. And this episode's going to do that for us unless my computer explodes. Please don't do that, computer. Please don't. You're not even warm. Don't blow up. I need you. So, Water Orb. It's safe and pretty, although its recovery point seems to have been expunged. Containment area is to have a sealed drainage system, and any materials or liquids collected are to be submitted for testing and review. Emergency drainage systems are to be maintained at all times and must possess no fewer than 8 filtration screens. 791 is to be held in a, well, that's a short entry, in a wide weave steel mesh bag to allow for ease of location in a draining event, and to contain any biological events. Okay. Removal from the bag may only be done under testing conditions. Is that the bag, or is that just how they found it? 791 appears to be a mass of liquid water held in a spherical shape by an unknown and undetectable force. Biological tissues can pass through 791 as they would through normal water, and reports indicate the water to be similar to normal seawater, but with a lower salt content. It is impossible to splash 791, however water may be drawn out via the hands or mouth. So you can drink it, but you can't splash it, and it tastes like seawater, but not as salty, so it's probably unpleasant, but it won't kill you, but it would help for when you lose a tooth, since I've been told it's supposed to swish salt water around for that, although I've never known why. 791 reacts to non-biological materials, such as stone or metal, as if it were a sphere of solid concrete. 791 may be lifted, rolled, or otherwise manipulated in this way, but acquiring samples with non-biological materials is extremely difficult due to the extreme hardness and weight of 791. 791 does not reduce in dimensions when water is drawn from it. This is true even when withdrawing very high volumes of water, so it's infinite water, and the water is sterile and contains no microbes of any kind. It is almost identical to earth water but has a slightly elevated amount of hydrogen. It will randomly undergo draining events where massive amounts of water will pour from 791. It retains its properties during these events, and draining can last between several hours to 4 months. Items will sometimes exit 791. It is unknown where these items are coming from, though they look like they come from the ocean. Items resembling seaweed, fish, plankton data expunged, note possible awareness. What? The blank-like entities have occurred multiple times and have data expunged unknown. Communication via blank and similar alternate realities observed via 2684, 3374, or indirectly through 257. What? Is this written by whoever it is that, where they write the articles and they like block out stuff and expunge stuff, it makes entire sentences make no sense? Because that's what just happened here. Anyway, now it's time for the Body Farm, which has probably got to be at least Euclid. Hey, holy crap. 792 is surrounded by an electric fence topped with razor wire, measuring 4 meters high. The only entrance to 792 is a gate on the south side, which is to be guarded by 3 armed security personnel at all times. Additional security personnel are posted every 1.5 kilometers around the perimeter. It's a long perimeter. 792 must be inspected weekly for new instances of 1, which is this thing, except between September 2nd and October 31st. No other personnel are to be admitted into the area. That kind of sounds like that pumpkin patch where you don't go in there during Halloween or the pumpkins will murder you. Sounds like that. 792 is a wooded area measuring 4 square kilometers near the town of Blankety Blank. 792 contains at any given time between 37 and 4,500 human corpses, hereby designated 1. Instances of 1 vary greatly in race, age, etc., with slight trends existing towards Caucasian and Hispanic descent and heightened age. All specimens are nude. Instances emerge from the ground at apparently random intervals at a rate of roughly 10 per day, and a process that takes between 9 and 14 days. One specimens will emerge head first in a prone position. After emerging, decomposition will proceed as expected in 792's environment. Fully emerged instances of one show no unusual properties. If removed from the ground prior to complete formation, the portions of one that were underground will be composed of a large mass of root-like structures. Analysis of these structures have shown them to be identical in composition to human muscle tissue. That's creepy! Once a year, between the dates of September the 2nd and October 31st, 90 to 130 humanoid figures, hereby referred to as 2, will appear in and climb out of a pond in the center of the area. Instances of 2 are clothed in white level A hazmat suits with tinted visors, which prevent the face from being visible. The instances are sapient and capable of communication in English. After exiting the pond, 2 will retrieve fully formed instances of 1 and place them in the pond where they will disappear. This process takes 2 days to complete. An average of 13% of fully grown instances of 1 are not taken through the pond. Instead, instances of 2 will construct a large bonfire in the center of 792 and burn them. The process of this is currently unknown. If questioned, instances of 2 are generally cooperative but will refuse to leave the area and show anxiety to begin working again. Level 3 clearance or higher is required to view the following document. We totally have that. Let's see. Interview 4. Interviewed 2. Interviewer senior researcher Lol. Forward. On December something, 1997, a single instance of 2 emerged from 792 and requested to speak with the person in charge of the containment of 792. After some deliberation, senior researcher L chose to conduct an interview. Why did you want to speak to, or why did you want to talk to me? Your research is disrupting our work. And your work is farming. Yes, we understood that already, but what's the point? Why do you do it? It is our duty. Can you elaborate? Those headed for Assad require guides. We judge who is worthy and who is not. The worthy are taken to Assad. Those who aren't, we destroy. And by conducting our research, we're preventing you from doing this? Yes, the crop cannot be disturbed. What will happen if we continue our research? Death is not a right. It is a gift that we can deny. Are you threatening us? No, you are threatening those who would otherwise be welcomed into Assad. Your research is preventing them from resting. Could you not just take them regardless? I would like to leave now. At this point, 2 attempted to get up and leave the interviewing area, but was restrained by guards and put in a holding cell. 3 hours later, it disappeared from the cell. Current whereabouts are unknown. Closing statement. Senior researcher L has requested the suspension of all testing involving 792. The request was denied by Site Director R. Okay. The ghost sickness. Ooh. It's Euclid. Looks weird. Maybe the ghost sickness is what causes Danny Phantom, though. Zone of denial, currently, is 13.4 meters. Special containment procedures are 793 is to be marked with stakes marking the perimeter of the zone of denial. A base distance of 13.4 meters from each side of the blankety-blank medicinal center is to be marked as the zone of denial, with a second perimeter extending the zone of denial out an extra 50 meters to be regarded as the restricted zone. Signs placed on the perimeter of the zone of denial must state no unauthorized entrance in the following languages: English, French, Swahili, Luba Kasai, Kikongo, and Luganda. When testing, access is to be restricted to disposable dudes, or dudettes. No other Foundation personnel are to be allowed entrance. The further installation of security cameras around the hospital is a possibility. Before I read what it does, it sounds like it just, if you go in there, then it makes you turn into a ghost, and it's probably not pleasant. SCP-793 is described as a hyper-reproductive paranormal variation of human Congo... Ooh, man. Trypanosmiasis? A parasitic protozoa also known as the African sleeping sickness. Maybe Google can tell us how to pronounce that. Nope. That sure didn't tell me how to pronounce it, but it looks like it's caused by the tsetse flies. Inhabiting the abandoned blank medicinal center located in Data Expunged, built by blank missionaries in 18 blank. 793's first note appears was documented in 19-something. The hospital was subsequently relinquished from use blank years after due to the exponential growth of 793, but it was never demolished due to superstitions the populace and prominent blank and blank tribes held. In 19 blank, the hospital was secured by the Foundation. SCP-793 in its passive form does not appear to exist unless a suitable human host enters the zone of denial, Zod. Kneel before Zod! Turn away from Zod! Be terminated if you enter Zod! Which is currently estimated to be 13.4 meters from any point around the hospital. When a human enters the Zod, the organism will appear spontaneously inside the human circulatory system. Unlike a normal form of that, which has a limited range of reproduction, the reproductive rate of 793 increases proportionately to the subject's distance into the Zod. E.g., when a subject is at the edge of the Zod, it will reproduce at approximately 5% the speed of human Congo that. But once inside the hospital, where reproductive capability is at a constant, 793 cells will reproduce at approximately 400% the speed of their cousin. I almost thought it was going to say the speed of sound, because that just... wow. Symptoms appear to be dismissal to those of normal Congo that, with a notable increase in hysteria and swelling of the lymph nodes. And here's a picture of that hospital. The opposite occurs when a subject leaves the Zod. The reproductive rate decreases and parasites will spontaneously disappear with no visible signs of cell death. Somatic cells whose deaths can be attributed to 793 will appear as if origination suddenly occurs, not as the result of general somatic mitosis. These symptoms will fade to those of earlier stages from the neurological phase going to the phase, stage, etc., until there are no signs of the protists existing when a human victim exits the Zod. One final note about possible human death as a result of 793's actions: the reversal effects. Reverse victim death completely. Oh. Once a deceased are rescued from the maximum reproductive zone, somatic cells appear immediately and any remaining instances of 793 disappear. Upon the so-called undeath, individuals often recall extreme pain due to the reconstruction of their body, mostly regarded as something along the lines of thousands of knives piercing their body, and have no recollection of ever entering the zone of denial or any knowledge of 793. The reversal effects only regard any damage it causes a human. Bodies whose deaths are attributed to other causes, such as normal human Congo vat, will not be affected. 793, it used to say, does not seem to appear on anything that is not a living human body entering the Zod, and now it says does not appear on anything that is not living human tissue. Appearance of 793 does appear on partial entrance of a human to the zone of denial, and is limited to the fraction of the human that is in the zone of denial. Objects brought out of the hospital have no unique effect attached to them. This is a weirdly written addendum. Addendum SCP-793-X0J1 regarding site demolition of SCP-793 via blankety blank, as suggested by Dr. William Hunt and Chong Meng, PhD. Date time expunged. The blank blank medicinal center, otherwise known as the residence of the infamous SCP-793 specimen, was subject to the possibility of sterilization. Proposals generally suggested a wide variety of explosive materials, typically blank-based compounds. Controversy over the destruction of Euclid-class specimens has always been a major topic of discussions within the Foundation. The general consensus about the termination of 793 is one of concern. Most Foundation personnel suggest the continued containment of 793, despite continued controversy over the topic. The details for the defense of continued containment procedures are as follows. A. 793 really possesses no real threat. No permanent death has occurred from the actions of the ghost that. The hospital's architectural structure appears to be continually sturdy and shows no signs of serious decay, suggesting structural invulnerability. We don't think this could be tested. It's not yet. As reference to the consensus, we have no knowledge of what would happen on attempted destruction of the hospital, and we don't want to anger the close-by tribes in the area. We'd also like to discuss the possible reclassification from Euclid to safe. Addendum 793-OR51 regarding Zone of Denial fluctuation. Reported by Mark Fulu via email, edited for better comprehension. It seems that a few of the tests into the Zone of Denial found that the boundary is further away than what it used to be. Don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about this. Data temporarily expunged till investigation. Help! I do not know what to do. The thing keeps changing. Expunge till investigation. Please help! It's growing bigger and bigger and bigger now. Other similar messages from Mark Fulu and other personnel stationed in the area has brought intrigued investigation by Foundation assets in North America. Confirmation of Zone of Denial distance fluctuation is currently pending. As Mark Fulu had limited grasp of English, his messages were edited to be more understandable. Oh, it says it right there, that it's just all smooshed together. Alright, that brings us to the desert shipwreck. It looks like the majority of the animals were just going to be next episode, but tough, we're doing them this episode anyway. It's Euclid. The area, ironically, I was listening to, a river in the desert from Persona 5 before I started doing this video, so it's kind of ironic that there would be a desert shipwreck right after I listened to half that song. The area in a 10-mile, no, not 10-mile kilometer, that's what I was about to say, 10-kilometer radius surrounding 794 has been designated as a no-fly zone, and all unauthorized personnel attempting to enter the area are to be detained for questioning. It's been a while since anyone's been terminated for looking the wrong way. Not that that's a bad thing, there's a lot more termination in the first half of the 700s than there are now. Unauthorized aircraft attempting to enter the airspace around 794 are to be signaled off immediately, and any that fail to follow instructions are to be intercepted and detained at containment site 794 Alpha. Personnel may only approach within the 1400-meter red zone of 794 with prior permission from at least 2 level 4 personnel, and may stay within the area for no longer than 30 minutes at a time. Personnel experiencing any nausea or exhibiting any strange or psychotic behavior, like crazy laughter, must be removed immediately and quarantined pending psychological and physical evaluation. So what is it? 1 is the derelict remains of an ocean-going vessel located at approximately blank near Redacted in the Sahara Desert. According to markings in Cyrillic, which we found out what that is yesterday, the vessel is the Redacted, built in blank in the city of Redacted in 19 blank. This is inconsistent with available records, as no vessel by this name was ever constructed. The vessel is in an advanced state of disrepair, consistent to exposure to the elements for a period of at least blank years, and to date it is not known how 1 came to rest in its current location nearly blank 100 kilometers away from any body of water. Maybe it fell. 2 is an enormous mass of living nervous tissue integrated into the cargo hold of 1, currently estimated at approximately 167 kilograms. While experimentation has shown significant neural activity, it is currently unknown how it functions or how it obtains sustenance. Maybe it eats the sand! Living human subjects that approach within 1400 meters of 794 report feeling an increasing compulsion to approach and enter the vessel, peaking at approximately 60 minutes of cumulative exposure. At this point, affected subjects will attempt to enter the vessel by any means possible and must be terminated, there it is, in order to prevent them from approaching 794. Once within the vessel, affected subjects will enter the ship's cargo hold, whereupon they will immediately collapse and die. 794 was discovered on blankety-blank during a routine satellite surveillance pass. The vessel was located shortly thereafter by Foundation agents, and current containment protocols were established following the loss of blank members of the initial survey team. Here's an analysis of the bodies. Following limited experimentation performed via the use of remotely piloted robotic vehicles, the bodies of individuals have been recovered from 1. Of these, 1 were members of the Foundation initial survey team, were Army personnel reported missing in 19 appear to be unidentified civilian explorers, and the rest are far too decomposed to identify. Autopsy of the intact bodies has shown a complete lack of neural tissue, including the brain, spinal cord, and all muscular and sensory nerves. During this time, 2 has also grown by an estimated 3.4%. Further investigation is ongoing, but difficult due to the inherent danger of 794 and our inability to approach it directly. Disposable assets have been secured in order to derive a method by which 794's compulsion effect may be mitigated or suppressed. So, it sounds like, you see the boat, you want to go to the boat. You go to the boat, you want to go into the boat. You go into the boat, you die, it takes your brains and assimilates it. There's a lot of brain assimilation in the 700s. And that brings us to the reality-bending cat, which I assume is Keter, because typically when reality can be messed with, it's not going to be Euclid or safe. And yet, SCP-795 is to be contained in a 75-meter by 5-meter area divided and secured with clear plexiglass walls containing locked doors as follows. A. 1 wall door at 5 meters from the far end of the room. 795 lives in the 5 by 5 meter space thus created. 1 wall at 35, 1 wall door at 35 meters. This defines the outer limit of the area that 795 can affect while contained in Area A. C. 1 wall door at 65. Area C may be used safely for observation while 795 is contained in A, but must be cleared if an interaction is taking place in B. D. A standard containment door at 75 meters. This creates a 10 by 5 meter area where 795 can be safely observed while released into Area B. 2 level 1 guards are to be posted in Area C. They should move to Area D if 795 is in Area B for an experiment. Due to injury potential, non-disposable dudes are not permitted to interact directly with 795. An automated food and water dispenser and litter changer have been installed in Area A to limit unnecessary contact with 795. If necessary, it may be tranquilized from a distance and then safely handled. Additional cats exposed to 795 must be contained in an identical manner for a period of 3 hours. It's adorable. 795 is a large 8.2 kilogram black long-haired domestic cat Felis catus of indeterminate breed exhibiting two major anomalous abilities. 1. 795 can change the physical form of any living creature it is able to observe within a range of 30 meters. 2. 795 can make telepathic suggestions to humans within the above range of effect. 795 can transfer its abilities to other cats within its range of effect, but this effect on the other cat is temporary and dissipates within 3 hours of separation from 795. 795 does not otherwise exhibit any unusual physical or mental abilities. Typically, it will transform anything it considers friendly into another cat in order to play with it. Anything considered unfriendly or dangerous is transported into a prey animal and then killed and eaten. Use of 795 to terminate recalcitrant D-class personnel approved. Rude! Telepathic suggestions have consisted of desires typical of cats, more/better food, softer bedding, toys, and to be let out of its enclosure. Staff may purchase appropriate items for 795 at their own expense. Dr. Blank. 795's transformations revert after a period of 1 hour after removal from its presence, or after removals from its presence. 795 is proven unable to transform itself, inanimate objects, or objects that it cannot see. Addendum. 795 was originally contained on blank 2000 blank at the blank Animal Control Center in blank. According to the records found there, 795 was named Junior, was approximately 2 years old upon containment, and had been surrendered by a relative of a deceased prior owner. Note from Dr. Blank, we have no idea how she got Junior into the cat carrier and down to blank. A number of unusual conditions were found at the Animal Control Center. All dogs had been euthanized. Cats were roaming the facility freely. The center was blank $1,000 over budget for cat cares and supplies. 3 center staff were missing and presumed victims of 795. The cats were contained by use of tranquilizing gas. Initially, all of the cats in the center exhibited the abilities of 795, but lost their anomalous powers within 3 hours of being contained and separated. Okay. So I guess it's Euclid because as long as it's contained, they're fine. Now let's see what the river cat does. The river cat is also Euclid, and there's no pictures of this one. As 796 affects only one individual at any one time, information concerning it need only be suppressed at a local level. Clinical and psychiatric records are to be screened for possible mentions of 796's effects. The current affected individual is to be identified and located as soon as possible. Should an individual be confirmed to be under the effect of 796, they are to be coerced into containment. The use of force, lethal or otherwise, is not permitted against individuals suspected of being affected by 796. What is it? I guess we'll find out soon. Once the current affected individual is located, they are to be housed in a modified humanoid containment chamber, lined with memory foam and equipped with microphones with a sensitivity of at least negative 35 decibels to confirm the continued presence of 796. In addition, the subject must be inspected daily for any new wounds. A lack of new wounds may indicate a breach of containment. Wounds inflicted on the affected subject must be disinfected and treated promptly. Similarly, damage to the containment chamber as a result of 796 must be repaired as soon as possible. Essential personnel are not to approach 100 meters of the containment chamber without prior authorization, and contact with the affected subject is to be limited to non-essential and disposable dudes. In addition, at least one disposable dude is to reside in the 100-meter exclusion area at all times. The death of the current affected individual is to be considered a possible containment breach. As such, their safety must be ensured at all times. In the case of their death, a residing disposable dude will be inspected for signs of 796 and subsequently contained as necessary. I'll drink some water real quick. Sorry about the ambient fan noises while that was happening. Update. As of January the 2nd, or possibly February the 1st, 2005, 796 is currently contained by Subject 796-17. As Subject 17 has not expired, despite being affected by 796 for more than 6 months, he is to be considered as a more permanent solution to containing 796. Subject 17 has so far requested the following: a selection of fiction books, preferably of the romance genre, approved. Portable music player, denied. Phone call, denied. Cat food, approval, pending. Update, as of I guess that was February the 1st. March 23rd, 2006, the above containment procedures are now obsolete. Subject 17 is to be located and captured as soon as possible. See Addendum 3. Description. SCP-796 is a condition whereby an affected individual begins to perceive a large feline entity in their peripheral vision. The exact appearance of said entity has so far not been ascertained. While the majority of subjects have described it as an unusually large and dark-colored, separate accounts of its shape, exact size, and overall body structure have been inconsistent. Affected subjects will often experience a strong sense of paranoia and dread, largely assumed to be the result of the entity's constant presence. However, no hostility has ever been reported on the part of the entity. Instead, 796 will result in the manifestation of the following minor and largely harmless physical phenomenon. Large scratches sporadically appearing on objects in the vicinity of the affected subject. Occasionally the subject will appear to have been scratched by an unseen force. These wounds have so far been merely superficial. A faint, deep purring sound emanating from the immediate area around the affected subject. This effect is only detectable via specialized recording equipment, though most affected subjects claim it to be clearly audible. The appearance of paw prints and nearby soft materials is consistent with that of an unusually large cougar. Notably, visual hallucinations experienced by affected subjects often correspond with manifestations of 796 physical effects. All affected individuals will experience an event that will place them in an acute mortal danger within a month of first experiencing 796 effects. It is unknown if 796 is the cause of such events, or if it is aware of and attracted to individuals who will experience such events. Affected individuals' claims that 796 causes bad luck are to be disregarded, as research has shown that affected individuals do not experience statistically increased rates of misfortune or accident. All individuals affected by 796 will nonetheless expire within 1 month. Upon the death of the current subject, 796 will transfer to an individual in the immediate vicinity. 796 was first documented in the town of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, after Marina Izquierdo, a 46-year-old homeless woman, was admitted to the local hospital for severe abdominal pain, later diagnosed as due to accidental pesticide consumption. Izquierdo appeared highly paranoid and agitated throughout her stay and died 2 days later after doctors were unable to save her. An autopsy revealed numerous superficial scratches on her throat and abdominal area. Dr. Hannah Merriam, who attended to Izquierdo, later reported visual and auditory hallucinations consistent with 796. She died 2 weeks later when her car crashed into another vehicle en route to her home. Multiple fresh scratches from an unidentified source were discovered on the steering wheel of both vehicles. At least 27 other individuals are suspected to have been affected by 796 prior to the Foundation intervention and containment on September 9, 2001. On January 27, 2004, SCP Blank was accidentally activated while being prepared for transfer to another site. The resultant explosion severely damaged the humanoid containment wing of Site-32 and caused 31 fatalities, one of which was Subject 16. It is unknown as to whom 796 transferred to next due to the chaos of the mass containment breach that ensued. Subject 17 was only identified a year later through a routine search of psychological counseling records and was subsequently brought into Foundation custody, where he claimed to have been under the effects of 796 for 6 months. Addendum 2. Excerpt from the interview conducted with 17 on March 12, 2005 by Dr. Nico Ray, a Site-32 humanoid containment psychologist. The interview was conducted as a part of a routine psychological examination of human and humanoid subjects. Superfluous dialogue has been removed for brevity. So, can you elaborate a little more on how and when you first noticed your condition? It's hard to pin down a time. I wasn't in the best of states last year. My roommate moved out in April. Had to quit my job in May. And there was that accident outside the grocery store. God, that was so bad. It was just awful. And after that, it just, got hard for me to go out anymore. So I didn't. Then I started noticing things, seeing things. First I thought it was shadows. My apartment doesn't get much light, see. But it turns out I was right. I would look at the dark place and I would look away and there it would be, watching me. I catch glimpses, the ears and the tail, but that was it. What was your reaction to all this? I don't really think I cared. Nothing really mattered at that point, not even when the scratches started appearing and the growling stopped being just in my head. When people stop messaging you and the world forgets you exist, it's hard to see any of this is really real, So, on a bright sunny morning in July, I closed the windows and turned off the television and I popped 5 strips worth of Ambien. It's hard enough with those claws getting in the way, but I managed. And I poured a glass of water and took it all in and I lay down and closed my eyes and, well, it didn't make any sound, but I could still feel it watching me. I saw my eyes roll back in their sockets and my throat clenched shut and it didn't do a thing. I think that's when I realized something. What was it? That no matter what happened, it was going to be there. Always there in the shadows, in my ears, and my skin. I was watching. Even when I had nothing left, even when I was on my way out. You know how they say cats can see through the other side? I think that thing just wanted to see me through. And for some reason, I thought that was the best thing that anyone could have done for me at that point in my life. To see me through. Jacob, are you aware that everyone else with your condition has so far died? Yes? Why do you think that is so? Subject 17 glances over Dr. Ray's shoulder and smiles. I don't know. I guess it just kind of likes me. Addendum 3. On March 23rd, 2006 at 7:36 in the morning, surveillance feed for 796 containment chamber was disabled. Deployed security forces discovered that the chamber was manually opened from the outside using a keycard belonging to Dr. Nico Ray, which had been reported as missing 2 days earlier. Neither Subject 17 nor SCP-796 was found inside the containment chamber. Traces of claw marks were found on the keycard access panel. In addition, the following note was found folded underneath Subject 17's pillow. See, the thing is, you keep calling it that, a condition, an affliction, as if you can't bear to call it a disease, but it's not. Diseases hurt. They get under your skin and in your head and claw at your mind until you beg for it to end. This doesn't hurt, not really. It scratches from time to time, sure, but that's it. Sometimes you give me excuses and talk about keeping me here and find a cure for all this, but you and I know that's not going to happen. It's not, and I don't mind at all, because I've already gotten better. I'm sorry I have to leave. 4 blank walls and a locked door isn't much different from what I've been used to. But there's so much I want to do. And the cat can't stay in here forever. It's not really the indoors type. Jay. So the cat broke him out. That's wacky. Now it's time for the Curious Poltergeist. Which is also Euclid. Maybe it's that weird floating orb thing there. SCP-797 is to be contained in a room with room 6 meters in length and 6 meters in width. Walls, including the floor and ceiling, must be at least 10 centimeters thick. The room is to be airtight with filtering system to clean the air of any bacteria. Every 7 days, a human cadaver of any age, condition, gender, or race is to be deposited in the 797's containment. After a period of 24 hours, it dances! The cadaver is to be removed. Under no circumstances are any personnel to interact with 797. Should it enter a rage state, one is to be eliminated via incineration and a new cadaver wheeled in, prompting a reset of schedule. Alright. 797 is an oval-shaped object. Okay, it was. Attracted to either dying or freshly deceased humans. It is almost always seen with one, a collection of human flesh from various cadavers. Ew. When accompanied by one, the subject will attempt to interact with any living human entering its containment. Testing on 797 reveals that it does not react to non-human bodies, although it is known to mistake organs from other animals to be human, provided the organ is of comparable size and shape as that of a human. So, monkeys. Probably. Or tigers. The subject appears to have an understanding of human anatomy and will attempt to interact with any personnel that enters its containment with varying degrees of success. Upon failure, it will enter a rage state and begin to dismantle one, launching pieces of flesh at those whom it had attempted to interact with beforehand at a velocity recorded of at least 70 meters per second. Contact with the pieces cause no harm beyond normal consequences of being exposed to rotting human flesh. The impact has been known to cause broken bones, cracked ribs, which are, also broken bones, torn organs, and internal hemorrhaging. When without a body, 797 will attempt to escape its containment. Due to its small size, about 5 centimeters in diameter, it will attempt to hide under the clothes of any living human that enters. It will also attempt to hide in shadows, apparently trying to trick personnel into thinking that the subject has escaped. When surrounded by one, 797 shows no desire to escape, instead focusing its attention to attempt interaction with any living human that enters its enclosure. No contact beyond those in the containment procedures is to be attempted without permission from personnel ranked level 4 or higher. One is controlled by the subject using a currently unknown method. The puppet is built around 797 with the subject at its center. When separated from its controller, one loses all cohesiveness. Body parts must be periodically replaced due to natural rot. Tests on samples collected from the subject reveal no significant abnormalities. Rarely the subject will attempt to use one to talk, producing a redacted sound accompanied by a release of bacteria in the air. If this situation occurs, no fewer than 3 agents are to perform procedure 797A. 797 was found at a local hospital in Blythe, Nunavut, Canada. When found, the subject was collecting various body parts from patients around the hospital, and one consisted of a torso including 30 centimeters of an elderly woman suffering from pancreatic cancer, both lungs from an adult ringed seal, 3 kidneys, ringed seal, human and donor organ, and the skeletal upper torso from a 13-year-old male dying of redacted. Hospital evacuated, and all involved citizens provided with Class B amnestic. Dr. K. M's note. Requesting permission to close contact with 797 over redacted months. I believe through detailed analysis of the subject's actions, we can discern more about whether it or not is sapient and its level of intelligence to begin communication instead of simply entrapping. Cortex rat. Sounds like it's probably a rat that either goes into brains, is already in brains, or is a brain, or is really smart. It's safe, whatever it is. 798 is currently housed in an 80 by 60 centimeter cage on a wooden table. No personnel should approach it alone. The cage is to be kept secure within a low-level cell. 798 resembles a healthy adult gray-beige rat. However, it has been seen to engage in behaviors usually associated with corvids or higher mammals, such as self-awareness, problem-solving, and the limited use of tools suggesting heightened intelligence. I don't know what corvids mean, or is that, I think corvids are crows, or ravens, or whatever, birds. 798's dietary requirements, sleep patterns, and metabolism are normal for Rattus norvegicus, or whatever, norvegicus. Yes, rats. And blood tests confirm that it belongs to this species. 798 possesses the ability to influence other animals from a distance and even control them if allowed to establish physical contact. These subject's abilities have proven to be far less effective on cetaceans, corvids, and primates. Subject appears incapable of establishing a physical link with such creatures. It used to say recent tests imply that 798 appears to be completely incapable of influencing members of its own species. Now it says recent tests imply that 798 demonstrates different behaviors when interacting with members of its own species. Addendum. X-rays, CRT scans, and data expunged indicate that 798 is a normal rat, and no heightened electrical, chemical, or neurological activity has ever been observed in either 798 or any of its targets. Log 1. Request to incident report blank for further information. Log 2. Researchers agent blank and blank. Procedure routine observation. It preened itself, rearranged its bedding, and began eating. Partway through its meal, it stopped and began staring intently at Agent Blank. Agent Blank slowly got up and reached toward the cage, announcing his intent to let the little guy run around a bit. Agent Blank stopped him by grabbing his arm and addressing him directly. Addendum 2.1. Agent Blank's experiences imply that 798 can assert a psychological effect on those in close proximity to it. Repeats of this experiment indicate that this effect is easily overcome through application of willpower and or the subject's awareness that they are being manipulated. Mostly 798's subconscious broadcasts a request for freedom or more food, although it has proved capable of making researchers feel intense guilt during procedures such as shock therapy or blood sampling. Agents Blank and Blank. 798 was left alone with a house cat belonging to Agent Blank. The cat immediately jumped onto 798's table and began to nudge the cage off, where it struck the ground, dislodging the holding pin. Once 798 had been released, the cat prostrated itself and allowed 798 to data expunged. Probably eat it. Researchers Dr. Blank and Agent Blank. Procedure 798 and 3 canine subjects, D1, 2, and 3, were released into a 4x4 meter cell by means of a remote operated lock on their cages. The dogs were previously liberated from laboratory duty at a pharmaceutical corporation. Ages and breed indeterminate, but assumed to be between 4 and 10 years. The dogs immediately moved towards 798 once the doors were no longer obstructing their view. D3 was the first to reach the primary test subject and allowed 798 to latch onto the back of its head. In obvious distress, it barked at the other subjects and they responded in kind, showcasing typical territorial behavior that soon escalated into a three-way fight. D3 was victorious, killing D1 and D2 despite being the smallest of the trio, and despite receiving severe wounds to the jugular. Afterwards, the surviving dog walked over to the cage and lay down. 798 returned to its bed, cleaned itself of blood, and then went to sleep. D3 did not get back up and was found to have suffered a fatal aneurysm. Dr. Blank and Agent Blank. Procedure 798 and another specimen of Rattus norvegicus, R1, were placed in a 80 by 60 centimeter cage separated by a transparent plastic divider. When the divider was removed, R1 immediately attacked 798. Both researchers reported a sudden feeling of acute discomfort. Quote from Agent Blank, "It was like I was suffocating? It was like having a migraine while something shoves itself down your throat and floods your guts with hot water. Never felt anything like it." On instruction by Dr. Blank, Agent Blank reached into the cage, deftly separated the two animals, and replaced the divider. 798 suffered various bite wounds, whereas the other rat appeared to have avoided harm. Addendum 5.1. It appears that 798 may be incapable of influencing other rats, instead inspiring a primal murderous rage in them by its mere presence. 5.2. After an hour after Procedure 5, the personnel on guard duty reported that R1 began vocalizing a distressed squeal. 798 was standing behind the divider, staring intently at the other rat. R1 began to bleed from the mouth and defecate all over its half of the cage, culminating in a brief but very severe seizure. It was found to have died from a myocardial infarction. Okay, cool. So it will stare at other rats and they will just die. Astounding. Carnivorous blanket. I assume it's Euclid and it's a blanket that eats people, but it might be safe because it's just a blanket despite eating people. Euclid it is. Each specimen of 799 is to be kept in a separate biocontainment cell at Biosite 66. Used to say 100 grams of dry brine shrimp is to be sprinkled over each object monthly. If this is not available, 500 grams of household dust will suffice. Now it says, it has been determined that Biosite 66's maintenance staff remove significantly more than the necessary quantity of dust from the disposable class dorms monthly. This dust is to be collected in the usual dustpan bags and delivered as necessary. No more than 500 grams per specimen is necessary or advised. Should any throw pillows or separate similar objects appear, they are to be placed in separate containment immediately and the presiding researcher notified. The objects are not to be removed from containment except as authorized for testing. Description: members of 799 vary in size, shape, and superficial appearance, but always retain the appearance of a knit or woven item of bedding made from an unfamiliar but very soft natural fiber, resembling high-quality merino wool blend, but identified as data expunged. An individual's mass ranges from 0.5 to 6 kilograms and does not change except through ingestion and excretion, so any immediate increase in area comes at the expense of thickness and fabric weight. The blanket retains heat unusually well. Its coloration and markings are highly variable. It tends strongly towards pastel hues and patterns resembling stylized neotodous animals, particularly when its mass is less than about 2 kilograms. The items are living organisms, most similar in physiology and structure to data expunged, although alternate hypotheses suggest fungal origins. Full notes may be found in document 1A, which is probably not here. Although well insulated, they are apparently cold-blooded, hence their adaptation for use by intelligent homeotherms. Instances of 799 are usually torpid and incapable of movement, requiring little nutrition. What they do need, they draw from the organic detritus present in a household dust. One specimen is believed to have survived for years on end, stored in a damp, ill-maintained attic, living on heat from the house below and detritus from the wooden rafters above. Excretion is minimal. Excreta resemble tiny, very dry data expunged. If forced to survive for long periods without sufficient nutrition, though, 799 is capable of metamorphosing into a predatory form. The resultant structural changes are invisible to the casual observer. They consist of modifications to the digestive tract and feeding orifices. The latter shift from minute, dispersed filter feeding mouths into a single large mouth lined with data expunged, probably teeth. Not really sure why you needed to mute that. The organism also develops contractile tissue similar to animal muscle. Once this metamorphosis is complete, the 799 individual waits for a large animal to wrap up in it and become quiescent. Sleep is common. Before opening its mouth, tearing off a few kilograms of biomass and consuming it. The biomass is apparently reduced to thin slurry almost immediately, as even seconds after feeding there is no visible bowl to the blanket. The mouth is completely reabsorbed 10 minutes after feeding. At this point, no evidence of the blanket's nature is available except by X-ray or by observing the sudden increase in mass. By 40 minutes after feeding, the entire carnivorous digestive system is resorbed and the organism returns to its filter feeding phase. In carnivorous phase, the organism will not feed on inanimate objects or cold-blooded animals. Dr. Blank hypothesizes that its senses are entirely limited to touch and heat, and that it does not recognize cooler objects as organic. 799 reproduces by budding. When an individual's mass reaches a certain minimum, very slowly except in case of carnivory, it takes on a more quilt-like appearance. Gradually over the course of several weeks, the quilt squares along one margin puff up and slough off to become several small doilies or throw pillows. The offspring are clones of the individual, identical to it in every way, and will grow to a similar size and reproduce in turn given suitable conditions. The first of the Foundation's captive 799 population, blank individuals at time of writing, was retrieved on blank 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 from blank blank, where it had been residing in the home of notorious germaphobe, data redacted, after it metamorphosed and apparently fed on his infant granddaughter. A standard biological sweep revealed the blanket's nature, and it was taken into containment without resistance. It is not known how many instances of 799 exist outside Foundation containment, as they are very difficult to detect except by genetic testing. Extrapolation of growth rates and reproductive weights from the specimens in containment suggests that a filter-feeding 799 organism reproduces once every 50 to 60 years. Note: any wild blanket should be destroyed upon detection. The species is fascinating, but we have a large population in containment and the wild ones pose too much risk to public exposure. Further research into a possible connection to SCP-1626 is ongoing. Dr. Blank. And that brings us finally into the 800s, and it only took a couple of months to get there, with Eastern history. And it's Euclid, and it's long. How long? Very long. Not as long as it could have been. SCP-800 is currently contained in a 50 by 200 by 2 centimeter hermetically sealed glass case. Standard positive action defenses, explosive, chemical, biological, and mimetic, are to be in place at all times according to standard operating procedure. No maintenance is necessary on 800 itself, despite its apparent age, but its case is to be cleaned of dirt and dust every 6 days. No paint, ink, or other writing materials or any staining fluids are to come into contact with 800 except under controlled testing conditions and with prior O5 level approval. Description: 800 is a 42 by 166 centimeter East Asian paper scroll painting of variable style and subject. Radioisotopic dating has determined that it dates from the mid-19th century. 800 currently displays as an ink painting of 2 Korean warriors placed above one another, the upper armed with a bow and the lower armed with a Saingoem style sword. The painting style resembles 17th century Joseon dynasty art, despite 800's paper scroll being more common in Japanese or Chinese painting. According to information gained from 800's previous custodians, as well as an investigation of a number of photographic records, the scene depicted on 800 has been observed to spontaneously take 12 distinct forms since the beginning of the 20th century. It's theorized that 800 has changed to depict symbolic representations of every major armed conflict in East Asia, as well as a number of armed conflicts in Indochina and one in Central Asia. As there is no major Asian armed conflicts at the present time, currently the SCP appears to represent the tensions between the two Koreas as an important flashback for military action. Flashpoint. The mechanism by which 800 changes is unknown, and no changes have been recorded electronically, despite constant surveillance of 800 since it entered Foundation custody in 1979. 800 has always been observed as an ink painting, usually in Japanese or Chinese style. Korean-style paintings have also been observed, including 800's current appearance, as mentioned previously. The era of painting does not correspond to 800's observed age, with painting styles observed from the 15th century Ming dynasty to contemporary East Asian art. Nations are commonly represented as national animals, such as a Chinese dragon, bear, presumably representing Russia, or eagle, presumably representing the United States. However, the symbolism in 800 is often subtle, and nations may often be represented by plants, landscapes, or people. For a detailed list of 800's manifestations, see Addendum 1, which is actually there. 800 may be marked or damaged by normal means, however, any stains on the painting disappear after a number of days. The paper 800 appears on may be torn, but tears in the painting likewise regenerate after some days. It is possible to alter the content of 800 semi-permanently by using identical materials and painting in a similar style to that of 800's current incarnation. However, after the events of Experiment 1, all proposed alterations to 800 require O5 level approval. See Addendum 2 for more information. Is it here? It is. Let's see, where did that go? 800 was retrieved in January 1979 from an antiques shop in the city of Blank in the Southeast Republic of Korea. The proprietor, one Mr. Blank Blank M, claimed to have a magic painting which altered its appearance over the years. At the time, it displayed its present appearance. It was discovered on chance by Dr. Blank, who was skeptical of its owner's claims and only wished to purchase it for personal use. However, Dr. Blank noticed that it possessed at least some extra-normal properties by accidentally staining it with ink, then noticing the stain had disappeared after a period of 2 days. Upon Foundation examination, it was determined to be of no SCP-level significance and put in storage at Site Blank. It obtained SCP classification in mid-1979 at the beginning of the Sino-Vietnamese border war, when it changed overnight to an 18th century Qing Dynasty painting of a Chinese dragon flying over rice paddies, SCP-810. After this event, Foundation staff tracked down Mr. M for interrogation. It was revealed that the painting had been in his family since the beginning of the 20th century, when his grandfather purchased it from a merchant in Shanghai. As Mr. M was the only known source of information on 800 in his prior appearances, he was recruited as a research assistant and was 800's caretaker until 2007, when he died of natural causes. Dr. Major subsequently took responsibility for 800's custody. Addendum 1. A list of all known incarnations of 800 follows, along with the historical event they are believed to correspond to. Save a small number of photos, one of which may be seen above. All descriptions of before 1977 are obtained by word of mouth from Mr. M or his acquaintances. Their accuracy may therefore be somewhat suspect. 1. Unknown style. Allegedly a bear struggling in the water with a sun overhead. Information is limited as Mr. M only recalled his elderly grandmother repeatedly mentioning a painting of this description hanging in their house when she was young. Presumably depicts the Russo-Japanese War. No information available for 2. 3. Allegedly a dragon surrounded by cherry blossoms, presumably depicts the Second Sino-Japanese War. 4. Chinese style of unknown era, allegedly an eagle perched on a mountain with a dragon and a rising water beneath. Presumably depicts the East Asian theater of World War II. Mr. M claimed the canvas went temporarily blank in mid-1945. This may correspond to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 5. Chinese style, possibly of early Qing dynasty. 2 dragons fighting. The first incarnation of 800 observed in full by Mr. M. Presumably depicts the Chinese Civil War. 6. Korean style, possibly of Goryeo dynasty. 6 reported to change subtly numerous times over this period. Basic scene depicted was 2 Korean warriors similar to those in 12. Its current appearance, but with an eagle and at times a Chinese dragon visible. Presumably depicts the Korean War. Apparently similar to the current description. 18th century Qing dynasty style, initially eagle perched alone on tree, see attached image. Subsequently transforming into flying eagle with trees and human figures and conical hats. Presumably depicts the Vietnam War. Unknown style of painting resembling the Khmer stone carving, data expunged. 15th century Ming dynasty style, Chinese dragon flying over rice paddies, Sino-Vietnamese border war. Modern Japanese style, bear surrounded by small humanoid figures armed with spears with a small eagle overhead. Possibly depicts the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. If true, this will be 800's only representation of a Central Asian conflict to date. 12. Present, see current description. Addendum 2. After the events of Experiment 1, SCP-800 has been upgraded to Euclid class and further experimentation forbidden without O5 level approval. Experiment 1. To date, the first and only alteration testing carried out on 800. On May 22nd, 2000-something, 800 in its current form of 12 was altered using ink and brush by a Foundation staff member experienced in modern reproduction of Joseon Dynasty painting. Addition consisted of a quiver of arrows on back of uppermost figure-wielding bow. No effects were initially noted apart from the fact that altered paint remained for an unusually long number of days. 3 days later, on the 25th of May, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea data expunged. It is unknown whether this event was connected to Experiment 1, however further experimentation has been suspended indefinitely. 800 was restored to its original state by Foundation staff. Addendum 1-1. Well, this might be useful if we ever have reason to destabilize the entire region. Shame it's anomalous, it'd look rather nice in my office. Okay then. I'm not going to Google what happened there, because for one, they didn't say the year, and for two, I don't really want to touch that. That being said, this has been Anachi Sasuke. This episode, I think, 168 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. And the next episode, I don't know. I might do a sidestep, but if I don't do a sidestep, the next episode is going to be 7 Furs, Musical Tank, Predatory Parasols, World Without Man, and Poison Woodful. A lot of death in that one. So, if you liked it, a like to subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you need to do either one of those things, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.